I'd like to welcome everybody to this special wrestling webinar that we have. We have an awesome individual that we're going to get to learn from today and have some question and answer time. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest today, and then we're going to get started with a little bit of a clinic, and then, like I said, follow it up with some Q&A. We have Pat Glory, Princeton wrestler and Scrap Life athlete, with us today. A little bit about Pat, if you didn't already know. He grew up in New Jersey, was a two-time state champion, four-time district and regional champion, Super 32 champion, three-time Beast of the East champion. He was a Who's Number One champ, two-time Escape the Rock champ, had 157-7 career record at Del Barton, including a 43-0 senior season. Placed third at Fargo, and was part of his National Spanish Honor Society member, Fellowship of Christian Athletes member. He's the son of Cheryl and Pat Glory, has a younger sister, Caitlin, and a younger brother, Connor. And Pat won Princeton's first NCAA individual wrestling championship since 1951, and the second one ever for Princeton. He defeated Purdue's fourth-seeded Matt Ramos 4-1 in the finals to complete a perfect 25-0 season and earn his second Hodge Award finalist nod. Pat also became Princeton's second four-time All-American, joining former teammate Matthew Kolodzik. Pat won the EIWA title for a third time in his career, becoming only the fifth wrestler in program history to win 3 EIWA titles and to make 4 EIWA finals. So we're super excited to have Pat with us. His accomplishments speak for themselves. And Pat, did you want to just give a little bit of a preview of the technique session that we're going to share with the coaches real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jason. That was an awesome introduction, and I'm really honored to be a part of this webinar today. We have a huge slate of a wide range of techniques from the Underhook series, kind of variations from it. I think one of the things that's amazing about the Underhook series is that there's so many different ways to score. And so we're going to go over, kind of variations of kind of how I get to it, different things you can do from there. And yeah, it's going to be a great day.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pat. And Saxton, we're ready for the technique portion of this webinar. So if we want to kick it off with that, and then we'll follow it up with some question and answer for Pat after this technique video.
What's up, guys? It's Pat Glory here, 2023 NCAA champion. I'm really excited to be here. I'm teaching an underhook today. But before we get into that, I just want to thank BSN Sports, for allowing me to be part of this webinar, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys here today. So like I said, today we're going to work on an underhook series, just a couple variations of it, certain things you can do once you get there, and just kind of how I get there sometimes, how I set it up. Where what I'm looking for once I do get in there, and just some kind of little tricks and tidbits that might help you out while you're doing this. So got Shelton Mack here, 2019 U.S. Open champion, 2021 U.S. Open champion. I'm sorry, I'm really excited to have him here with me. So again, like I said, we're getting to the underhook, right? I like a righty underhook. You might like a lefty underhook. I'll show you what to do on the opposite side. So kind of depending on whether you're lefty or righty, it might, change what you have available to you, right? I'm a righty, so I'm always shooting righty shots. So for example, when I have this righty underhook, right now I have my single leg and I have maybe a post double, but on my left side, I have maybe a pull single, right? Just or maybe a step in high single on this left side. So basically, figure out exactly what you want to hit from these underhooks, but in terms of how I get to it, right, could be off a shot. Maybe Shelton pulls me up, right, and now I get right to this underhook here. It could be from my fakes, right, chopping his way, dig it, right. There's a bunch of different ways you can get to it. Maybe I go like Russian, right into this lefty underhook here. But what I'm looking for when I do get to it, I usually try to have a collar on the opposite side, right, so either on the left side or the right side. But I'm using this collar to pull his head into my shoulder here, kind of locking it in, right? And now I'm almost like looking back into it. If you can see on this side, almost looking back into this, locking it in, right? So now I have a good handle on this underhook, right? So now a couple of things. I usually like to step into it and try to get my hip to his hip, And that kind of makes him have to circle and move his feet and create an angle for us. So right now I can either take this single leg right here. If Shelton's really circling up, I can take it double to that side, right? Sometimes a guy will go really heavy collar tie on this side, right? So if you step in, right, step in, he really hunkers down on this collar tie. I can step in, slide by, right there, right to a wrist, right to a chop, right to something on top, right, transitions right away. So that's a lot on my right side, right? So fake, right, chop hand away, dig underhook, right? The reason this works is because I'm digging it so much, right? It's not just I'm digging one underhook and I don't get it and then I get frustrated that I didn't score off of it, right? Dig, 10, 15 underhooks a match and you're gonna score off 1 or 2 of them, you know what I mean? That's what you see the best guys do in the world, at the world level. So, why not try to emulate that from a young age? So, dig underhook here, right? Again, use this collar tie to kind of get his head into position, stay low, right? And now I'm gonna either get an inside tie, elbow, something here just to grab onto, and then I'm gonna start stepping in and bringing my hip in here. So as Shelton turns, I can either take near side single, I can take circle, far side double. If I have that inside tie, if he hunkers down, I can take slide by, right? There's a bunch of different things you can do. That's from my right side. That's from my dominant side. It's kind of the 3 main things I'm hitting. Now on the non-dominant side, so lefty side for me, right? Same thing applies with the where his head positioning is, right? My hand is open on his back, someone didn't mention. I'm almost trying to grab his scapula on the opposite side, if you can see that. Always kind of dig this under, right? Constantly kind of try to get leverage on your opponent here. And I think that turn of your hip also helps kind of get leverage there, right? Maybe you slide down to this wrist too is another good grab, right? On this side, there's a couple things I can do. Most likely, Shelton's gonna really circle up here, right? So when he does, I'm gonna pull this underhook down and pull myself to a single leg on that side, if you can see that. Right, trying to pull as I get backside and hit almost like a swing single, right? So I'm here, right, digging underhook. Shelton's really circling. Boom, pull it as I feel him circling. Pull that single leg down, right? Stay above his knee. Once you get here, keep your head up. Get backside shelf, right? Do all the right things. Don't come up to his hip too early. Do all the little things right. So that's what's gonna make this finish, proper. So one more time on this left side. You can also hit a little duck here. You gotta be really slick with that and time it right. But that's also an option, right? Step in to a duck. But for the most part on this left side, I like this single leg where I'm driving in, shell, circle, pull myself around with the underhook. Pinky above the kneecap, head up in his hip pocket. Right, maybe I come up to my feet here, finish easy, right? Or I get backside, finish that way. If we're in freestyle, looking for lace, looking for transitions. If we're doing folk style, looking for a wrist, looking for turn, right away, right off that takedown. So I really want to focus in on this double leg because I feel like a lot of the times from this righty underhook, it's one of the ones I score with most. So I feel like we should really kind of focus in on this one specifically for a second, right? So again, we're getting this collar tie. We're bringing our head inside, right? And kind of locking his head into place here, right? Again, I'm trying to dig my shoulder underneath, try to get as much leverage on Shelton as I can. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to move off of this collar tie into like an inside tie. Maybe down to a wrist, but if I'm looking for double, I'm usually trying to get a really good grip on this inside tie here if I can keep it, right? So now I'm gonna, again, step in with my inside foot as I try to pivot my hip in. And I'm stepping in here, right? Stepping in. Shelton's gonna have to try to circle up. When Shelton circles all the way up, I'm gonna kind of let him come up this way, and I'm gonna use the underhook and the inside tie to finish that double, right? So again, underhook, inside tie, this way. As he circles up, I'm gonna throw everything over and hips in, turn, come up to your feet, finish double. So one more time, right? Again, just in terms of how I get to this righty underhook, if Shelton posts, right, maybe I'm kind of stalking him, waiting for him to post me. I'm gonna chop this arm away, use that lefty collar tie to slide his head where I want it, right? Now I can transition right into this inside tie here, right? And again, step in, pivot hips towards his leg, right? Step in, pivot hips towards his legs. Step in, keep stepping as he circles, throw it. Usually you catch it, right? If you time it right, you'll catch it pretty easily, but notice how I'm locking my hands under Shelton's butt here. Almost have like a butterfly lock, keeping my elbows pinched, right? If my hands are unlocked, it's gonna make it really hard for me to lift Shelton here, right? I'm not super strong here, really strong here, right? Really, really strong here, right? I can lift this up fairly easily. It's really hard to defend when you're off the mat, right? So that's why for this double leg specifically, I want to get this off the mat if I can. Maybe put him right to his back. But if I can't, my locking my hands really prevents me giving up ankles and prevents, funk roll and, any of that kind of junk that you might get, into if you finish right here or something, right? Now you give up this ankle, right? Where if I had this lock, right? I can pivot over this ankle, I can drive back, I can finish pretty easily, right? So one more time, I really want to talk about this timing, right? Because, if you don't time it right, you're going to get caught here, and this is going to be, you're going to end up probably in high crotch or something, right? He sprawls out maybe, or, right, if you're doing freestyle, he's going to go, crotch lock or chest wrap or something like that. So what I really want to emphasize is where your head position is really important, right? So my head is not up this way, right? If Shelton's head beats my head, I'm not going to be able to get underneath this quick enough, right? So I got to kind of continue to get leverage with my head too, so that when I feel him circle up a lot, my head's already here, right? And it's already low to get to this angle here, right? Again, locking hands, pivot with your head, looking over the opposite shoulder, right? Really using your head to get a lot of pressure over, Shelton's hands. So one more time, again, set it up however you like, right? I usually like to do it off a fake, post, collar, right? Kind of just getting your timing down, but dig a lot of these, right? Dig a lot of these because you're going to score maybe off one or two, and that's what's going to separate, the match for you, right? So again, here, another thing you could do to this double leg too is maybe you can't get inside control, but you have outside elbow. You can do the same exact thing, but this time go drop your hand after you circle and go post to it. It's another option for you as well. So again, underhook, right? Couple things, right? So we just did this inside control. I taught you a little bit about, right? If you go elbow, you can still circle here, right? And then just let go when you get the angle and go post and use that post to propel yourself into that double. One last one I like to do, you still end up in a double here, right? But if you can slide down to his wrist, right? And try to almost beat this arm through here. This is a really easy finish, right? You almost trap his arm through this way. And it's a really easy double finish right there, right? So, but again, you have to really, so especially if Shelton's like trying to dig under overs, right? Sometimes you gotta almost maybe even switch your feet here, right? Switch your feet, get really long on this side, right? And slide this wrist down. Now you can switch your feet again, right? And then use the same pressure to kind of almost beat him on that opposite side, right? Almost propel yourself around with that circle here. Circle. Pull yourself around. Right, kind of use that hip pressure, that hip momentum to propel yourself around to a double on the opposite side. So one more time, I'll show that elbow, right? If I'm going from this elbow, circle, right? Maybe even try to go slide by if you can, but if not, I'm gonna go post, right? That's always gonna be there if he's hanging on a hard collar tie. Same thing as this pretty much. We're really propelling ourselves through after using this hip pressure, right? Boom, turning the quarter, pivoting our feet. This other one's a little bit different, right? This last one, where we're coming down to his wrist, right? We're trying to beat his arm this way, right? Trying to slide down this arm and then catch almost like his hamstring or his kneecap, so then I can slide to a lock on this double leg here, right? Pick up right to his back if you can, right? So last time I'll go through all three of these one more time, but they're all finishing an underhook to a double, just variations of that. So one more time, right? How I get to this underhook varies, right? It could be from chopping hands away, could be from a shot, right? But however you want to get here. Open palm on his back. I won't move off this collar tie until I feel like I have Sheldon locked in here, and I feel like I have leverage, right? Then I'm gonna probably slide down to this inside tie, try to pull this inside tie down as I hip in to Sheldon right here. Maybe I try to beat it that way, right? Maybe I try to go underneath to finish double with that inside tie, propelling ourselves through, locking our hands in a butterfly lock, turning the corner, right? Come up to our feet. Maybe I get to outside tie and I feel like I don't have the leverage to go slide by. I'm just gonna use this to pull down, and then I'm gonna post to a double. Right there. That's another pretty easy one to get to. Same kind of idea as the inside tie, right? Propelling yourself with the underhook and the inside tie over, getting your hips in, hands locked, turning the corner, drive. This last one, right? So now we got a good inside tie. We're able to slide down all the way to this wrist. And notice for this one, my hips, I'm switching my hips here so that I can elongate my body so I can get this hand back to this wrist and kind of slide it down. Right, then I'm gonna switch my feet again. So even if I'm double under over, right, I'm gonna switch my feet, I'm gonna slide down to this wrist, and then I'm gonna switch my feet again. And again, using this turn to then propel me through to that double leg while I'm trapping that arm across, right? So huge part of this, sliding my head down. Everyone see that slide, right? Slide his head down and then propel yourself into this double, turn the corner, right? Now you have his arm trapped. Now it's really, there's nothing stopping you from finishing that double leg very easily, right? So yeah, so another thing that you can do to kind of set up that double leg is, threaten the single leg on the near side, right? So again, focusing on righty underhook here. I'm a righty dominant guy, but for you lefties, it's the same thing, just opposite side, right? Take an underhook on this right side. A lot of times this leg is right here. He's defending by, keeping this leg in. He's trying not to let us, continue to dig this underhook under, right? So what you can do is, again, same type of positioning where I step in, hip in, right? Use this angle, but this time I'm just gonna throw by and get to this leg. Right now I'm sinking my hand back, chopping down, right, and finishing single properly, right? So one more time, right? All I'm doing is I'm just throwing this underhook through as I drop my hand down to this, above this knee, right? And then I'm gonna come back down and drop the shoulder, right, as I keep my head in and I'm driving through Shelton's body right here, right? Then I'm gonna back step, come down to this foot, bring it all the way up, step around, finish single leg, right? So one more time, right? I'll just show it real quick. All I'm doing is stepping, throwing, coming down. Keep your head in, drop down, kick here, right? So what might happen too is you might dig this underhook here and go for this single leg, but Sheldon, drops it down, right? And then he's kind of using this collar tie to, prevent you from stepping in here. You can actually use a fake single leg to set up a slide by on this opposite side. So I want to emphasize after the slide by, like, do not stay up here, right? He's going to reach back around and try to, right, get there. So come down the legs, right? Come down the legs here. Come down to this double and finish solid. But in order to, set this up, I have to kind of still continue to step in, continue to dig this underhook underneath, right? And I'm trying to get to this leg. I can't. Throw it the other way. Right? He's going to be really hunkered down on this righty collar tie on this opposite side. Right? He's trying to defend me getting to the single leg by hunkering down really heavily. Right? So I can just use that momentum from this way, throw it all the way back this way, right? Kind of almost 360 turn where your hips are where your hips are pointed, right? my hips are pointed this way. I'm thinking single leg. Now my hips are pointed 180, right? Should say, right? Complete opposite direction. But use that momentum to throw your body all the way through on that slide by. So one more time, underhook. Try to get to the single, try to get to the single. Use that momentum. Throw that slide by. All right. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an honor, and thank you to BSN Sports for including me in this broadcast.
Well, thank you, Pat. That was some amazing technique, and it's not a surprise that you've achieved the success that you have with that arsenal that you have from your underhook. I know as a former coach for 26 years, I would love to have you come into my wrestling room and show that underhook series, because that's there was a lot going on there and some awesome setups from one that led to another, and really good stuff. So thank you for sharing that technique with us. And I'm going to open it up to questions. Anybody that's on the webinar, if you want to post your questions in the chat, I will read those off to Pat, and we'll get them asked. And while I'm waiting for those questions to come up, Pat, I just want to ask you a plain and simple question. What got you into the sport of wrestling?
Yeah. I think it's great, especially, this last year wrestling has made me really reminisce on the start. I started, I was always kind of first percentile height and weight. So it was hard for me to really be a threat in any other, kind of other sports, like, maybe basketball, or I couldn't really hit the ball well. Baseball, I was afraid of getting hit by baseballs and stuff. So I tried everything out, but for whatever reason, I just kind of was always attracted to wrestling, kind of the level playing field of it all, the kind of like extreme ownership that you have to have, when you go out on that mat, and kind of just feeling, the feeling after you win. It's just such an amazing feeling that you kind of want to keep replicating it. And, it gets harder, obviously, from the third grade on. But that's kind of what you remember. At least what I remember from growing up was just like, the start, who you started with, your rec guys, next to you, and just doing it for fun.
And I always tell dads, parents, other teachers, people that are asking about wrestling, why I love it so much. And I always tell them that's the only sport that truly does not discriminate. And it doesn't matter whether you're tall, short, wide, thin, it doesn't matter. You can have success, and you don't have to be the fastest. You don't have to be the strongest, tallest, or jump the furthest. It doesn't discriminate. It's people that put in the hard work and have a passion for it seem to have success. So I love to hear that from you. Couple technique questions real quick based on your underhook series. Tyrese wanted to know if you have any tips if they clamp the underhook down, maybe if they're clamping it down and trying to just to fend off your offense. What would you do if they came down tight on that underhook?
So I think usually when I have issues, especially like longer guys, if they kind of are able to kind of overhook the near side leg, you can always get leverage. So I think that's one of the things that always kind of helps me, is like continuing to kind of get your shoulder underneath. Mm-hmm. Usually kind of allows that arm to kind of come free, and will kind of prevent that from happening. I would say continuing to move towards the underhook side and step in and almost cut the opponent off on the other side is what has always helped me. And I think keeping control of the collar tie on that side until you really feel like you have, the underhook set, That's always kind of my binky, is just like going back to that collar tie if I don't feel like I have a good grip on the other side.
Right. No, that makes total sense. Dave wanted to know, how come you like going on the lat with your hook rather than capping the shoulder?
So from the defensive standpoint, if my opponent has an underhook with their elbow down, mm-hmm. It's really easy to hunker down from the overhook side, mm-hmm. right? Even like kind of like slide your arm over the top and do like, I would say like traditional underhook defense, kind of like posting, sliding your elbow over the shoulder and sliding your arm down. So what I would say is it's all about keeping your elbow up.
Right.
So for me, having an open palm on the opposite scapula keeps my elbow up and keeps a strong shoulder, right? You want to have as strong of a shoulder and strong of a grip on the underhook side as you can. And your elbow being up is what helps me with that.
So that kind of goes back to the first question that Tyrese said, how do you do it, the clamp down? Well, you get to that far lat and you get your shoulder underneath, and that keeps them from clamping that off. And that kind of ties into another question that was asked when it's Brian says, I'd be interested in hearing what types of counters Pat has when a guy responds with really tight overhooks. So by getting to that far lat, you're keeping them from keeping that clamp down on your underhook, it sounds like.
I think too, once you kind of drill this and kind of start feeling it out, you'll understand how important it is to have his head, almost give him head position, right? A lot of guys I see, they get to underhook, they have head position here, and it's not as loose, or it's not as tight rather, and kind of like locked in. When you have the head position on this underhook, it creates space. And so I think, not only the open hand on the opposite side, but that keeping that collar, almost giving a guy head position. This is almost like the one position in wrestling where you want to give a guy head position, because we're so used to getting it ourselves.
Right.
But almost like get used to almost like guiding his head into your collar, as you try to dig the underhook. That's kind of how I always just think about it, is guiding with the opposite collar tie.
I think these coaches are onto something here, because they're taking you through these scenarios that you will see in these underhook positions in sequence. And then coming back to Tyrese's next question, he says, how do you personally pair that series with snap downs off your opponent's pressure? So you're feeling that.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yep. So
no, exactly.
That
so
probably
right, so that
leads to your snap series, right?
Totally. So that's, again, this is all variations, right? You got to, this can be just as much of a setup for a snap as it is, you're scoring off the underhook, right? So maybe guys really hunkering down, and he's really, trying to prevent you from getting the leg attacks. That's an easy time to go front headlock, score off a drag. I love the drag series from, when you get a guy from front headlock, maybe in all fours, or even just, typical, just brute, front headlock, pulling a guy's face into the mat, trying to pull yourself around and get to an angle from front headlock for sure.
I think all these coaches on this webinar are like getting excited as I am. We would love to have you in front of us going through this on a wrestling mat, but hey, next best thing is a webinar. We can be in our own states and be wherever and pick your brain. Glenn has a question. Do you have any particular setups to get to your underhook?
Yeah. So I think honestly, I'll go down to a knee. And one of the things that Coach Dubuque and I had been working on for some years is just like expanding the setups to get to this, because if you watch the highest level wrestling, world championships, guys overseas, they're digging 400 underhooks a match and maybe scoring off 2 of them, right? And the score might be off of like a setup from an underhook, right? Where it's not necessarily scoring off the underhook itself, but it's scoring off a front headlock that was set up by an underhook. So I think the setups are super important. All that long-winded answer to say, I like coming up from a knee. Like I'll kind of go fake, come down to a knee, and then almost jack it up right from there. I like to, again, like I'm a big proponent of like just taking a lot of shots, being an aggressor. So a lot of times if I don't get my hands locked on a shot, I'll come right up to underhook. It's a good way to set it up. And that way you're not staying on your hands and knees and all fours and, almost giving up front headlock yourself. But I mean, there's a million different ways you can do it. You can do it from, just kind of like hand fighting, right? Sometimes you just feel it, an opportunity where an underhook might be there. But I think just trying to dig it as many times as you can is super important. Trying to control it, right? When you do get there, not just giving it up and having it slip, right when you get it.
Brian has another question about your head position off of your underhook versus head position being on the same side as your underhook, as head position being on the opposite. Do you wrestle from both of those positions, or do you prefer one over the other?
So like your opponent's head position, or
Yeah.
so anytime that I don't have head position on, if I have an underhook, I'm always trying to get his head on the same side as my underhook. So
Okay.
so even if like, you know, the guy's pulling his head away, I'm always trying to like lock it in with my head. I feel like it makes me really strong. It almost helps me keep my elbow up and my shoulder really strong in that position. So
Do you have any
I
offense?
very rarely.
Yeah, from the other position. Do you have any offense that you do, or you always try and get your head to the opposite side?
I pretty much have eliminated head position from underhook because again, I feel like I don't have control over it. It slides. People, you know, people defend it. People hunker down. It's really hard to keep your elbow up when your head is kind of in there,
Okay.
and close to it. So I would say, you know, I'm a big proponent of guiding head to same side.
Okay.
But again, like that's just my version of the underhook. I know other coaches, other guys, they do it differently.
No, that's good. I'm glad you're sharing with us what works for you, because this is the Pat Glory webinar, not somebody else. So um next question, a little bit more about you personally. When did you start having high level success? When you know, whenever I always hear the stories when people first start out wrestling, it's like, oh, it was such a tough sport, you know, and had to make it through some losses and some tough times and figure out how to win. When did you really feel yourself start having higher levels of success in your career?
Yeah, I would say it didn't really come for me until I think that Super 32 championship was the summer going into my junior year of high school. And that was the first time I really like had won something major on like a national level. That was kind of what, you know, I wanted to be ranked number one in the country. And you know, I was kind of a perpetual second growing up. So I took second in the state as a third grader and then kind of went downhill for a couple of years. I think I wound up taking like seventh in the fourth grade and third in the fifth grade or something, and then wound up taking second two more times. So that's going into high school as a three-time second place in the state of New Jersey. You know, which is a big deal, especially when you're going to a school that, right, you're going to be wrestling at the New Jersey State High School tournament, right? So that's, you know, New Jersey wrestling is, you know, very tight knit community, and everybody talks. So that, you know, that's kind of hanging over me. And then freshman year, come in having a great year. I was like in one of the toughest weight classes, maybe in New Jersey State high school wrestling history. I think we had like every single one of the top 8 guys go Division 1 for wrestling. And I wound up knocking off the number 1 seed in the quarterfinals, but then losing to someone who I had beat in the counties, the districts, and the regions that year. I think I had wrestled the same kid. The kid I lost in the state finals, I'd wrestled 7 times that year. And I won 5, I think. And one of the losses being in the state finals. So that's another second. And then sophomore year, I'm having a great year, undefeated. Kid, obviously Sebastian Rivera, we all know, multiple time All-American. He was a weight class up, winds up coming down to 113. And like, I actually saw a clip of this yesterday on social media, but I was up 4-0. Jonesy tilted him in the first period, and then wound up just slowly fading away. And then I wound up getting in the scramble at the very end and got pinned with like 1 second left in the clock to lose.
Heartbreaking.
But so that was my 5th time taking second in state. And then I finally like knew something had to change, not on the physical or technical side, but on like the mental side. So I'm a big proponent of like active mental, you know, kind of being mindful, I guess. And just like, I work with a psychologist, sports psychologist, in terms of like just performance based, you know, psychological training and kind of like being mindful going into tournaments before matches, what you're thinking about. And so, you know, I feel like, you know, I worked really hard on that end to really focus in on, you know, what was going wrong on the mental side.
Yeah, I think the mental side is really something that can make a huge difference at all levels, whether it's youth, high school, collegiate, international. You tell the story about finishing second. For those of you that don't know, my son's Bo Nickel, he was second in high school state as a freshman, and it just devastated him. And then, he went on to win 3 high school state championships. He was second as a freshman in college in the NCAAs, and then went on to win 3. It takes something special to overcome that. And it seems like you figured that out at a fairly young age. So kudos for you, and the psychology of it that you put into it, because I know that's not easy to overcome. And sometimes you doubt yourself, like, can I win the big one? And you got it done. We're proud of you, man. And I got another question on the board from Glenn. It says, do you study the Iranian wrestlers when using the underhook in freestyle for scoring moves such as like step outs?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, especially on the freestyle level, the underhook is like probably the most scored upon, maybe hand fighting offense that you'll see. And so, yeah, no, I definitely have watched a lot of film on like the Russians. I know Sidakov, big underhook guy, Yazdani. And, I've only ever had one overseas international wrestling experience. And I wrestled an Iranian and lost on criteria, in a really tight match. But, hey, I think that some of the freestyle kind of like savvy technicalities are something that, I'm continuing to build on and continuing to work on. I think that's, the transition that I'm making now, right? It's like my underhook series, I feel like was kind of specifically for folk style, right? And kind of like my transitions were mostly folk style based. And then you got to make the transition and just kind of have a little bit of a different like perspective on, what you're using this underhook to do. What's the objective of this underhook, right? And being mindful of the transitions that you can get from these attacks.
I think you're right on. All the high level wrestlers, I think you've got to study the people that are the best in those positions and learn from them and pick their brain. And not only does it make you better offensively, but it also helps you defensively when you come up against those types of wrestlers. So no, I like your strategy there. Tyrese wants to know, what does your pre-match routine look like? And he says, for example, 20, 30 bouts out to go time. So I'm assuming that that's he's talking tournament, which would be different than the duels. There's not 20, 30 bouts, but go through real quickly what your pre-match routine might be, what might entail.
Yeah, I actually wish that more high school coaches would kind of take the collegiate model a little bit. That being said, right, like it's kind of different in high school relative to college in the sense of like for tournaments you have 2-hour weigh-ins, and for the most part you're only getting an hour weigh-in. But so the routine for us is I would say pretty standard across all like college programs, but it's like, for weight control, I always liked getting a light wrestling workout in. We have this like little pre-match routine that we do, maybe an hour or so before weigh-ins. If you have that opportunity, if the mats are open, right, they have practice mats, warm-up mats that are open before weigh-ins. That way, especially if guys that are like really struggling to get to weight, they can, be a little bit heavier, and then they're only getting down to weight for, an hour, half an hour or whatever it is, 20 minutes, as opposed to going to bed a pound over and then waking up, but they're sucked out for 12 hours, before that. So, and then just in terms of like, post weigh-in stuff, obviously you want to be very calculated in what you're putting in your body. I think one of the things I've made the mistake of is like putting more food in than I should. So it's like, I think liquids are super important. Obviously you want to try to get as much hydration in you, whether it's Pedialyte or whether it's Gatorade, water, mostly water, I would say, but if you want to sprinkle in some electrolytes in there, that's great. And then like, 30 minutes out, I would say I get a pretty hard warm up in, maybe a 10-minute hard warm up, where we start, four shots, like high level, light finish. And then, 4 shots, like hard finish. you know, and then go into like some defensive stuff, you know, sprawls, counterattacks, stuff like that. You know, then get some top bottom, get a little bit of like foot fires in, you know, right before your match goes. But then, you know, for the most part, the 20 minutes before my match, I'm just listening to music, kind of getting zen, you know, whatever puts you in the right mindset to be able to go out there and compete. You know, I think music for me has always been something that has kind of taken me away from the craziness of like the tournaments, right? I can just put my headphones on and just kind of be in my own place and focus on the technicalities and, you know, my goals within the match that I'm about to go out and partake in. So that's kind of what's helped me, is just like getting out of that crazy environment and just kind of being in your own mind, being mindful.
I remember as a high school coach taking my team out and working them out, slight workout before the weigh-ins, and people were looking at me like I was an alien. And that just wasn't done very often in high school wrestling. But you see it all the time in college. And I agree with you. I think that's important to get them moving. You know, sometimes it's a long bus trip or whatever it was that you had. You got to kind of get that body acclimated to competing and moving. And then, like you said, it's great for those that are really close on weight. And everybody has to do it. It's not a punishment, you know, and the whole team's doing it.
It's a routine.
Think I got muted, but anyway, those are all great pointers and great tips. I think a lot of that can really help out the high school wrestlers as well. If the coach would find a routine for their team, like what you said, very similar. So I got a couple more questions left, and then we're going to let you go because we took up a lot of your time. What's next for Pat Glory, wrestling wise? What's next?
Yeah, you know, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what my path in wrestling, I guess, from here on out looks like. You know, obviously, I came to Princeton to have access to you know, opportunities both on the wrestling side and on the, you know, extracurricular side in terms of my career. And so you know, I have a job opportunity lined up in finance that I'm, you know, kind of looking forward to. I'm an econ finance major. So that, you know, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the next steps look like, but you know, whether that's on the coaching side, I have a little brother who's 14 years old who, you know, I'd like to be around, and my high school just built a brand new wrestling room. And so I want to be, you know, kind of helping the kids out in there and giving back to the program that helped me out and gave me the opportunities to succeed and to do the things that I've always wanted to do. So if that's competing and that's what I feel like, you know, is gonna be my path, then I got to kind of figure that out. But you know, all good options from my end for sure.
That's awesome. That's great. That, you know, wrestling's a sport that we all love to give back to because it's done so much for us, and the fact that you're still doing that, I really appreciate that, and it shows the fact that you took time out of your day to meet with us. Last question, I'm going to ask you. Tell us a little bit about the Scrap Life brand and the products and your association with Scrap Life.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Scrap Life because you know, it's been a great like couple of years now. We have done some really cool things. But I think the thing that shocked me the most, I think, was like really the quality, I think, of the items. Like, I'll be honest, when I first thought, you know, of Scrap Life, I was like, oh, it's not Nike. Like it can't be as good. And I literally don't wear anything else, quite frankly. I cut weight in my Scrap Life stuff. It's like really durable. You know, gets you really, you know, hot and warmed up really quickly. And I think, you know, it's also very like it's sleek material they use as well. And I've loved being a part of the team Scrap Life. It's you know, Jason, your son has kind of was the one that brought me on board. And so having a guy like Bo Nickel call you up and say, hey, you want to be a part of Scrap Life is you know, it's hard to say no to that, right? And I think it's just been a really cool experience for me to be a part of a team that like really has a for like wrestlers, I guess. You know, we're all the we're truly and wholeheartedly, a brand for wrestlers. And that's it. So that's what I think is really special. We don't really have a lot of brands out there that are, for wrestlers specifically. So
Yeah.
it's been really cool.
Yeah, no, and I love watching you guys train in the Scrap Life shoes and the singlets, their warm up stuff. I get some samples sent to me because of BSN and the everyday apparel, the joggers, the hoodies, the quarter zips are so comfortable, and just seeing you guys actually wear that same stuff out in competition and getting ready to compete is great. And appreciate all you do for the sport, Pat, and thank you once again for putting together that technique video on the underhook. It just amazes me. I watch you guys wrestle on the mat, and then you can come and break it down in technique sessions. Congratulations on your NCAA championship, and just want to wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors, whether that is on or off the mat. I know you've got great things ahead of you, and we couldn't be prouder of you and your success that you've had this season.
Thank you so much. It's just been so amazing, the entire experience. And so thank you guys again for having me on. And, I'm glad we can make something work.
Yep. And to all you coaches that tuned in, or wrestling fans, just thank you for taking time out of your day. Once again, BSN Sports, we're one of the leaders in supplying high schools and colleges with wrestling mats, with uniforms, with disinfectant, mat mops, headgear, shoes, everything. So reach out to me. I put my email in the chat. Once again, my name is Jason Nickel. I'm the category manager for BSN Wrestling, and we want to make sure that you guys have everything you need to be successful on the mat next season. So go ahead and reach out to me if you have any questions. And thanks you once again, Pat. And I want to wish everybody a great day. And thanks again, Pat.
Thank you guys. Thanks again for having me.
All righty. Thank you.